Okay, another new day here in the shop. Now I have the shop truck in here. So the trailer is all done. Went home, tried it out for the first time by towing the shop truck, which is awesome, and it worked great. So now the shop truck's in the shop. Now the shop truck's in the shop because I'm prepping it for a trip that I got to do next week, right before SEMA. I got to take it to Moab and hook up with the eBay Parts of America tour group. They're basically going to grab this thing from me in Moab, and they're going to haul it around to a whole bunch of different events. And then it's going to end in Los Angeles at the LA Auto Show, which is pretty cool. So this truck, many of you know it, but those of you who don't, this is what it is. It's a Jeep YJ grill, hood, and windshield frame. And then it's an Aqualoo Industries aluminum tub cab. That's this portion right here. And then an aluminum truck bed. And it's all faux tinted out to look like an old vintage shop truck. That's how we call it, shop truck. And we've even got the logo on the door. I don't have to do, oh, look who's here, Zelda. Zelda came to work today. Come here, say hi to everybody. Oh, Zelda. Zelda found some dirt outside to lay down in. Oh, she wants a belly rub. Zelda likes belly rubs. Oh, you're so cute. Zelda likes to have her tummy rubbed when she's in the shop. Anyway, so there we go. Zelda's our recent puppy. We adopted her from the pound. She's been a great dog. So this is the shop truck. It's a 5.3 turbo 400 Dana 300, 14 bolt rear, 14 bolt front, sitting on 40-inch tall tires. And to get it ready for the trip with eBay, all I'm going to do is just freshen it up a little bit. It's a couple things I have to deal with. It's been a great truck. It really has. This thing has been everywhere. Ultimate Adventure 2018, Power Stop Trail to SEMA. It's wheeled all over. It's wheeled the Hammers. It's wheeled Arkansas. It's wheeled. I can't think of a place that hasn't wheeled. Florida. I haven't taken it to Florida. But the truck's great. I do love it. It is like a legit old school shop truck. You know, you drive it. It's loud. It's noisy. It's obnoxious. It's perfect. It's kind of like me. It's like it's rough and tumble on the outside. Not much to look at. But underneath, inside, it's got it where it counts and it can get the job done. So I just want to go through it all, clean it up, check everything. I'm going to put a new air intake on it. When I had on it was kind of sketchy. I'm going to do a new radiator, cooling system flush, go through all the fluids. I got to replace an axle seal in it, and that's probably it. And then it'll be ready to go. Oh, and I got this new super cool vintage World War II trunk. I think it's World War II. It's military trunk no matter what. But this was like, they kept a bomb in this, I think, is what they said in the ad. But I had a toolbox in the back, but they'd always just rot away because they're always wooden. And I finally found a metal one. I think this is perfect. So that'll go in the back of the truck there, and I'll put all my junk in it. I'm gonna get my spare tire back up in it, and I do have a new sticker for here at the house. I'll have to pick it up. That's my power tank. It has like a vintage pinup girl looking thing on it. It's perfect. Everything about this truck is perfect. I do really, really, really like this truck. It's one of my favorites. If I could do anything to it major, I may do like a full drivetrain swap, which would be a new motor, a 4-speed transmission, new transfer case. But then it just gets messy. Then at that point, I'm rebuilding the front axle because the drop's on the wrong side. I have to put the drop on their side. And then, I don't know. It would be nice to have overdrive on the highway. But the Turbo 400 works great. It just means you can't do 80. That's the only thing you got to watch out for. Aside from that, truck's perfect. Oh, yeah, it's got this cool vintage seat on the inside. It's got this cool Mastercraft vintage seat in here. Apparently, a bird found a way into my truck while it was in storage. So I got to clean that up a little bit. And then, yeah, that's about it. So it's going to prep it, get ready for eBay Parts of America tour. Oh yeah, the hood's dented because Greg Henderson backed into it at an event. He offered to fix it, but I told him not to worry about it because it was just a worn out Okay, yeah. Yeah, we got some crazy stuff going here. So the radiator, the only problem I really had is I had a small pinhole down here at the bottom, and this is like the second OE YJ radiator I've put in this thing. I wiped one out in Moab, got something came up and knocked out the drain petcock. That wrecked that radiator, so I swapped the new one in Moab, and that's probably another one since then. Just had a tiny little pinhole in it. I noticed that last time I was driving. I don't know what it's from. So I thought, you know what, forget it. I'm just gonna go get a brand new one. So I got, where'd I put it? I got a brand new aluminum one off eBay Motors. I don't know where I put it. It's around here somewhere. Hold on, let's go look for it. So I got a brand new aluminum. Oh, there it is. Brand new heavy duty aluminum one off of eBay Motors. It's not for an LS swap. It's just a heavy duty aluminum radiator with integrated electric fan for a Jeep YJ or TJ, it says. And the reason I went ahead and just did that instead of getting like one for that's already had an LS swap in it, so I've already got the radiator hoses figured out going into this one. So I figured, why reinvent the wheel at this point? I'll just replace it. I've already got the hoses all set up. They just clamp on those water necks already, so it should be good to go. So it should just be a drop-in replacement, wire up the fan, and good to go. The overflow in this Jeep is actually pretty cool. I got this bottle of cheer wine a long time ago. It's literally a glass bottle. I thought for sure it would break first time out wheeling. It never has. It's survived multiple wheeling trips, and I absolutely love it. So I'm putting that back on with my brand new radiator. So with the radiator in, one thing I did notice is when I spun the alternator, it was obvious that it's going to need, it's got a bad bearing in it, so I pulled it. I'm going to run it in the parts store, get a new alternator. While I'm at it in this car, I'm going to go ahead, build a new air intake. So what I got was this universal air intake kit, also from eBay Motors. It's pretty cool. It's just this giant box with this giant tube in it that you can just cut up to make fit in your vehicle. And so originally I kind of had like just a janky little just an elbow and then an air filter basically right here. I think it was right over here somewhere. This motor does need a mass air meter because it is a factory computer, so the factory computers do need mass airflow sensors in them. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I think I'm actually going to come around to this side of the motor. I think I'm going to come underneath this radiator hose right here and then maybe turn this way, see if I can get the air filter back in here. That's my plan at least, but we'll start chopping this thing up and see what it looks like. Really digging this intake kit. It's got even more parts than I thought. So it has a connector to connect up to the throttle body in the 5.3, and then I was able to cut this little 90 out. I actually left a little bit of a leg. It's got these two bellows, one step down bellow to attach to the mass air meter, and then the mass air meter on the other side is the same size as the pipe. I checked, my wires will reach, no problem, no issues there. Those will plug back in, and then it comes over here. Then it's kind of got this like little velocity thing right here. And then it even came with this little bracket. So this bracket will bolt onto the back of this little velocity deal right here. And then it can then bolt right onto my inner fender right here. And it'll be perfect. I don't have to worry about it. It's ideal. They do give you another option, which would be to use one of these little, they got these little brackety pieces here. Where'd they go? There's a bunch of them. All kinds of stuff with this thing. I mean, there's little brackets like this that basically you could use to, you know, go around where the clamp would go, right there, and then bolt in. But I really think that big one's actually going to work out pretty good for me. Excited about this. This is really good because, I mean, the intake in an off-road truck, intakes are always, they're important, you know, because you're driving through crap all the time. And I really like this one. This one it's a Flowmaster kit. It's, oh, that's upside down. There you go. That's upside down. You can read that. 61.5/400. And then the best part is you end up with a bunch of extra pieces. So I still have a whole bunch of intake tubing left. I got a bunch of little bellows left. I could probably build a whole other intake for this thing if I wanted to, which is even awesome. Because it's kind of like all I have to do is get another air filter. 2 intakes, 1 kit. Love it. So air intake's done now, which is great. One thing you got to watch out for these mass airflow sensors. Make sure that you're flowing in the correct way. This one has the flow marked on it, so you want to make sure it's flowing that way. One thing this kit also came with, if you have the other type of mass air meter, which is this little the little guy that drops in, it comes with a little kit just for that. So you can even just drop in the small little mass air meter. This, I can't say enough good things about this kit. Super glad I found this. I've seen them before, but I didn't know they were back into production. I think it's super awesome. It's Flowmaster's making them. So if you're looking for an air intake, if you're building anything, get this air intake kit because then you have enough space, enough pieces to make a couple intakes. So now that's done. I think at this point, under the hood is finished. I got to stop at the parts store, get an alternator, get a new cert belt, and I'm going to pick up some other odds and ends. But I think at this point, I think it's almost time to put her up on the lift, start doing the stuff underneath. Got the shop truck up in the air now. This is honestly the first time the shop truck's ever been on a lift. I've always just sort of worked on it at the house, just on jack stands. So it's kind of cool to see it up in the air, even though this is the Big Tag Garage. The Big Tag Garage shop truck has never been in it, which is kind of ironic. So what I have to do now is I had stolen the unit bearings out of this truck to put on the LJ for Ultimate Adventure because they were an 8-on-6.5 35 spline. And then I had these unit bearings. Unfortunately, they are an 8-on-6.5 non-30 spline, so I ordered up some new unit bearings. Looks like I have a leaky axle seal in there. I'm going to take a quick look at. I'm going to check all the fluids and everything. The cool thing about the shop truck is it's always just kind of been like one of those vehicles that's just been like always good to go. You know, you basically charge the battery up, check all the fluids, fire it up, and boom, you're wheeling. It's always kind of been the cool thing about it. So I think what I'm going to do is do exactly that. Check all the fluids. I've already had it running. I got the new alternator on there. Got that new air intake. I do want to get the gauges put inside before it goes on this trip. And then aside from that, I think we're solid. So I'm going to go ahead and do the I think I might pull that front cover off, take a look at that inner axle seal. Probably what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to look at the shaft first. I think it's a shaft issue, not an inner seal issue. So I'm going to pull the unit bearings off, then I'll clean that tube out, take a look at it, and then I'll make the call right there. So that's what we're doing now. So as I said before, this axle is a custom 14 bolt. So what I have here is a 14 bolt center section, and then I grafted on Dana 50 outers. I basically made this knuckle slide over the tube on this side, and then the long side there is a sleeve somewhere in this spot, right? I think it's right here actually. And then this is the other side. So it's like a 14 bolt center section with a Dana 60 outer. Super cool axle. I built it just because I thought it was cool. I used to do a bunch of these. I don't do as much anymore. The low pinion is an issue with some people, and then but they're cheap. They really, really are, because the Dana 50s used to be able to find them for like 50 bucks. Those are getting harder to find. So you have to chop off a Dana 60, and if you're going to chop off a Dana 60, you might as well build a Dana 60 at that point. But there was a point in time when these were super cheap. The main reason these were cheap was the lockers for the 14 bolt are super cheap, because the mechanical locker in the front of this 14 bolt is half the price of a mechanical locker for a 60. So you basically lock both front and rear axles for the same price as one axle. When I built this Jeep, I originally kept track of every single penny that went into these axles to show, was it cheaper to buy crate axles or build your own. And these axles, complete start to finish, built into the Jeep, were right at $5,000 for both front and rear, and that's a good deal. You know, crate axles, okay, you're looking at $10,000 or at least $5,000 each. I got a tire rolling around over there for some odd reason. Anyway, so to build two bomb-proof 1-ton axles for $5,000 is a good deal. And then the way these work is, because the rock bouncer guy's been using them for years, is what happens is these little adjusters right here, the axle seal is actually inside that adjuster. So this axle seal is leaking, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically pop the center out, and then I'll pop this. I'll probably just pull this adjuster all the way out and then go ahead and see if I can find a seal locally. Hopefully I can. If not, I guess I'll have to order it. But yeah, I want to. See, the way this works is, can you see this? There it is. This side adjuster is aftermarket, and then this seal just hammers in. So this is not a factory piece. Can't remember where I got these from. It might have been, oh, it says right on it. Revolution 40 mile. That's a crane part. So crane axle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find a part number on this seal, and if not, I'll have to get a hold of them to find out what it is. Glad I tore that down, because you can see they're actually both messed up. Just this outer lip is wrecked on this one, and you can see this one's just starting to go. This is honestly probably from sitting more than anything else, just sitting with a shaft in there and then not being lubed up. So because this truck, honestly, it sat for a while, I'm not gonna lie. Probably what I'll do is I'll probably grease them up really good with some wheel bearing grease when I put them in this time. That can sometimes keep the seals alive for a long time, because it's going to help it if you just let it sit. So I'm going to put a whole bunch of grease on that, and then we'll put it all back together, and then we should be good to go. So the way these adjusters work is just a regular Dana 60 inner axle seal. We'll hammer in. I actually had these just in my toolbox from a Yukon kit. One thing you want to check though is make sure the seal fits over the shaft, obviously, before you go through the process of putting it in there. This one fits perfectly. And as I said before, what I'll end up doing is I'll just put a whole lot of grease on the inside of the seal, and I'll also grease up the inside of that shaft just to make sure that when it sits for long periods of time, it doesn't wipe out those seals in the future. So tap those in, put that back in, clean out that third member a little bit more, the differential a little bit more. It looked a little bit of water got in it, probably from a couple water crossings with the truck. And then I'll refill it with fluid, seal the diff and refill it with fluid. Should be good. hubs I'm using are from East Coast Gear Supply. They're bored out to a 35 spline to fit the larger shaft, and then they're re-drilled to 8 on 6.5 to match the rear, and then they actually press in these 9/16 studs, so it's the same back. And then I run a Yukon hardcore hub, had those on there forever. So once I get those in place, then the front axle's pretty much back together, which is awesome because it's been apart for a while after I stole those parts off of there. So I just had to, I needed them for a project. So once I get that done, it'll be fluids, check fluids underneath, and then I can drop it down and then start focusing on stuff like here. Fill the axle, I'm using this is a pressure pot. Basically, I dump the fluid in there and then I use this handle, pump it up, pressurize it, or I can pressurize it with the air compressor. Little gauge on it, pressured up, and then you just open the valve on the filler and it just fills up, pumps fluid into the axle. So the axles are all done now, my hardcore hubs are back on, everything's back in place. This is all finished up underneath. Just gonna put fluid in both the front and rear axle. Check the transfer case while it's up in the air, and then I can go ahead and drop it down. I'll check the oil, check the transmission fluid, and then I'll be done underneath. And then this thing is prepped. I would still want to do the interior stuff. I got a new box to put in the bed to store all my junk, and then I want to put new gauges in that I got. So those are the last two things I got to do. Probably won't get them done today. Probably knock them out tomorrow or Sunday, and then Monday, this thing's on the trailer, and we are headed to Moab. Like a lot of the GM stuff, just a little pipe plug on the side. What a lot of people do is they just jam a ratchet in there, but there's actually a tool for it. It's a little pipe plug removal tool. That way there's less chance of you actually breaking the ratchet while trying to remove that pipe plug. Couple more things I need to take care of before I toss this bad boy on the trailer and head to Moab for the eBay Parts of America tour. That's where I'm meeting them. So the back of this truck, I always kind of had just like an old military foot locker here. But then also what I had is, this is what's kind of cool. A lot of people don't know this. So I got this jerry can in here. So this jerry can sits in here like this. It's not just a jerry can. This is actually how you fill the fuel in this truck. So what you do is you open the jerry can, okay, and then you fill the gas here, and then underneath there's two large lines that go down to the factory tank, which is tucked in way back in there. So it's kind of cool because it does two things. Number one, hides the fuel filler. It makes it kind of cool that you have the fuel filler in a jerry can and not like a filler cap on the side of your bed. But also, I sealed the top of the tank where the sending unit is with a good, I didn't use a cork gasket, I used a rubber gasket and put the sending unit in there. What that gives me is the ability to actually carry, I can fill this jerry can up with fuel and it doesn't leak out the top of the tank because the vent actually comes up inside the jerry can. I don't know if you can see it in there, but there's a pipe. I doubt you can. I doubt you can see it in there. Oh, maybe there's a pipe way back in there. So what happens is the actual vent is inside this jerry can for the fuel tank. So, and it's sitting up pretty high inside this tank, so I can actually carry a couple extra gallons of fuel if I want to. And then the other thing I want to do is I picked up this old military trunk. So I've always had like a foot locker or a box or something in the back, but the problem is over time they just break down because they're out in the weather. And you can see this was the one that was in there. I picked it up just super cheap online locally. I got a little antique shop. I think I paid like $10 for it. But the problem is they just degrade because they're just out in the sun. They get weather beat. They just fall apart. So I jumped on eBay, searched a bunch of stuff, and found this. This is actually a military ammo can. Apparently it held like some big shell of some kind. I don't know. It's not like I think it's like a rocket ammo can. It's all metal. It's sealed up a lot better. So I'm gonna put it in the back and then put my spare tire in the back because I think it looks better with the spare tire in there. And then, oh, you know what? I think then we'll probably be pretty good. I think at that point, we'll go ahead and toss on the trailer. Care of is on the inside. Now I always had this factory gauge in here. It's out of like I can't even remember. I just bought it on eBay Motors like when I built the truck. Pretty sure it's out of like it looks to me like it might be a CJ7 or actually previous to that. I think it's earlier than that, but never worked. Never. It's a mechanical gauge. I don't have a mechanical speedo cable, so I've always just used my phone to do speed. There's no RPM. I use the rev limiter to know what RPM I'm at. But I thought this would be a perfect time to toss in some new gauges. And so I think these are the perfect ones. They're not super expensive, so I don't have to worry about them being in like an open top Jeep. It's an electronic speedometer, and then it's this 4-gauge, basically, it's this 4-gauge package here. So I made sure to match the fuel sending unit that I have in the tank. So I'll have a fuel sending unit, and then temp, volts, oil pressure. I'll have to add this sender and this sender to the motor. I'll do it at a later date. And then just a speedometer. And that's all I think the Jeep needs. The problem is, as you can imagine, these are 2 gauges that are that big. And that inside of there is one giant gauge right there. So the solution to that is the solution that I always come up with, and that is the plasma table. So what I've drawn here is a pretty simple little filler plate for my gauges. So I just made it 14 inches long on the top, 12 inches long on the bottom. This is actually upside down, so this is the top right here. And then this is the hole for the 2 gauges. I just basically kind of centered it up. I'm also going to punch some holes in it. I'll probably have to clean them up. I think I'll be able to get the hole close enough. I made it just a little bit small, so I have to grind this a little bit, just open it up. And I'm going to cut it out. I think I'm going to cut it out of this aluminum. I thought about cutting it out of some steel, but I'm worried that it's not going to be structural enough because I am going to be covering that hole where the original gauge was, and I want something with a little bit of beef to it. And so I think this aluminum's got a little bit of strength to it, so it's not super thick. And then I also don't have to worry about it rusting if it's in there. So, because like I said, open top Jeep, sometimes we're wheeling with the roof off and sometimes it gets so wet in there. So I think if I cut it with aluminum, it'll work out perfect. Plus it's going onto an aluminum dash. I think it's just a better mount. So chop this out. We'll see how it fits. when you're working with aluminum, there are a couple of key things you need to have. So if you look here, where's my grinder? So this grinding disc right here is an actual aluminum specific flap wheel. What happens is if you use the one for steel, what happens is it actually gets packed up, because it gets packed up and actually gets dangerous because it gets the wheel out of balance. So this flap wheel is specific for aluminum, and so I just went around and knocked all the edges off, knocked all the edges off of it with it. And now I just want to get rid of that little nub right there from where the lead in was, and I think that's what's keeping the gauges from coming out. But I also have to do that, I'm just going to go around it once with my die grinder. Now the die grinder, I have a specific aluminum carbide burr. You can see it's a lot more open than a standard carbide burr. If you compare it to a regular burr, you can see it's a lot tighter when you're grinding steel. Now some people will say, oh, just dip this burr in automatic transmission fluid, which you can do, but it makes a huge mess. And also, you can just get these burrs for aluminum. They work great. They're open. They'll just do a quick work of it. You don't have to worry about having to clean that burr out while you're using it. So I just got to give it a couple little zoops, and then I think the gauges will fit.